pop culture is all about who has money, who's got the coolest car, who's wearing the thickest chains. And so I'm in this place where like I'm living check to check, and I'm writing music that is in this world where so much lyrical content is about how rich you are. And I'm just like, I can't write that and be authentic about it because I'm fucking broke. So it comes out in this, like, I end up thinking about it really critically, and, like how sad it is and how much it morphs our ability to just exist and be happy normally as humans. Because I think it's completely removed that ability.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of Innersleeve, the podcast taking a behind-the-scenes look at all things music. I'm Cassius Morris, Joe Pacheco with me on the line. What's up, my man?
Good days today, man. Good days. Lots of work, so that makes me happy.
Good times. No complaints over here. We're very thrilled to be joined by iamhill on today's episode of the podcast. Hill is an awesome singer-songwriter and just overall an awesome artist. We talk with her about her overall artistry, how she stays inspired, her very unique music videos, lyrical content, and much, much more. But real quick, before we jump into this episode, just a reminder to check in with SoundMojo on our socials and all across the web. We're on all social media at SoundMojo. And we also have our store as well, the web shop with t-shirts, hoodies, I think pillowcases. I mean, we have everything. Diving into a couple of stories in the world of music, and it hasn't been too good of a week, or I think it's even fair to say not too good of a month, Joe, for Jon Bon Jovi. Now, I think it's evident for anybody who's been following the internet rock scene, period, that Bon Jovi, there's been some speculation about his chops. He's been having trouble singing live, and it's gotten to the point now where he's actually been called out by the vocalist of The Darkness. Now, what exactly was said here? Because this is a shame, if you ask me.
Well, Justin Hawkins, singer, as you said, of The Darkness, who's known to be a really high-pitched vocalist, right? Like, and
serious vocalist.
Can hit those notes. He basically, says he's watched a few of fan film Bon Jovi videos on this latest tour, and that he hasn't been doing too well, right? So it's, I don't know. What did you think? Have you watched these videos?
I have. I've seen it. And I got to say, like, I've seen some bad stuff. I've seen, Sabbath live on their last tour when people were questioning whether or not Ozzy should even be up there. And I got to say, this is the worst I've seen. From all the rock bands, from Paul Stanley of Kiss to Ozzy Osbourne, he just sounds like he's asleep on stage.
Well, is it even worse than, let's say, Vince Neil?
Oh, that's tough, man. I don't know if anything is worse than Vince Neil.
Well, I don't know if I have, like, maybe because I was a Bon Jovi fan when I was really a younger kid, and then I sort of like fell off his radar, But when I watched those clips, I thought he just sounds tired. Yeah. Maybe he was sick. You don't know. He can't cancel the show last minute. I don't know what it was. He just sounded tired, but or maybe, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. The mix wasn't so hot and stuff. And I mean, over the years, I've watched some of the Bon Jovi stuff, and they're getting on in years, man. It's hard to hit those notes. Yeah. I remember always, back in the 80s when it was like popular to sing really high pitched and and have that operatic voice. I always said, like some of these singers should just sing in their natural range so that they'll, at his age, 50, 60, years old, you'll still be able to pull it off, right? Like Ozzy. Ozzy just sings in his range. I know he can't hit those notes probably, as perfect as he used to or as like how he used to, but I mean, he still sounds like Ozzy.
He adjusts well too, and they tune down the songs really well. Like, so, I mean, that's where the differences come in, but this is tough. But you're right, Joe. I mean, the thing that I always hear from artists is, if you want to hear us out, sing it the way we sang it when we were 20, then go put on the record. I mean, at the end of the day, it's true. Nobody can sound the way they did as a young kid. But I mean, what are your thoughts on a fellow rock musician calling out one of their peers? Because that, I mean, I can see that going both ways, either being right or quite wrong.
Well, he says if you're in a situation like that, you can't deliver the goods. You can't give your audience what they deserve. It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And I'm sure even for John himself, it's like, come on, man, like you're phoning in this one, or whatever. We don't know what the real reasons may be. But because today we're in like a situation where tours are sort of just starting. So it's not like he's been on tour for 2 years, and stuff like that. So, but we don't know, I think it's
a bit rusty.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or like if you've been on tour for like 6-7 months, you're singing every night. Well, it's okay to, we get it that like at the end of the road, like you're tired, you need a break, a couple days off or whatever, But in this case, like Motley Crue, well, we know Vince Neil is just because like he's overweight and it was horrible. Like, I watched those things and I was like, what is this, But Bon Jovi, to me, honestly, it sounded like he was tired, maybe sick. The timing was off. That's what threw me off a bit because he's even late or like his timing is not on.
Yeah.
So
maybe you couldn't hear it quite well either, like you're saying about the mix. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what happened.
Yeah, but like if it's if we start seeing, I don't know if this all came from the same event, the same gig, because I saw from the same show when I saw these. So I don't know now, like 3 weeks later, if people are still putting up videos and he's still like that, then I would say, yeah, dude, like take a break or figure something out,
Rappers Gunna and Young Thug have just found themselves in a world of trouble, not just them, but their entire group / record label YSL, Young Stoner Life. Now, it looks like the feds have been watching this group for quite a while, and they've come up with an indictment with 56 counts of RICO violations. Now, these violations include assault charges, aggravated assault, drugs, weapons, armed robbery, and much, much more. Now, this group has also been no stranger to controversy and charges. In 2015, there was a murder trial involving Yak Gotti and 4 others who were charged with the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr. back in 2015. So, I mean, where do we start with this, Joe? Because, I mean, this is an insane level of legal trouble here.
Well, yeah, and it's like all 28 defendants. Like there's like 28 of them. This is crazy. Basically, like he's
whole team going down together.
Yeah, like he's running a ring, basically. Like racketeering. I don't know much about this kind of legal stuff, or racketeering and stuff. But I mean, this is pretty serious, man.
This is serious stuff. And I mean, the thing with this is people say, well, rappers always get in trouble. They always do stuff like this. They'll be fine. I think the difference between this and just like getting pulled over with something illegal or something is that this is conspiracy to commit crimes against the government. And we all know anything that takes money out of the government's pocket that's not being taxed, you're going to go away for a long time. So, I mean, maybe, asking you the question, if you were a hip hop artist, would you be rapping about your crimes? Because these guys are literally talking in their songs about selling drugs, doing illegal stuff, and they're actually doing it.
It's like, I watch a lot of car and racing YouTube videos, and I see all these guys taking their Porsches and their Ferraris on regular streets and just slamming them and recording the speedometer. I'm like, you're asking to be arrested, man, Literally documenting
the crime to snitch on yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting, because like, I mean, like it's all about, being the toughest, the biggest, the baddest, and stuff. But like, they got away with it. Like, they're being watched. It's almost like the feds or the government. When they get onto you, they're like, okay, let's just give them rope.
Give them some time. Yeah.
When we finally like have enough, we'll pull the rope, and they will have hung themselves. So it's like,
yeah.
It's scary, man. I'm just glad I'm not in this whole scene, like in terms of like, having to watch my back every 2 seconds, so yeah, there's something to be said for the simple life.
No doubt about that.
So I'm just curious, like, what is it, is this going to be like, are they going to be away for 20 years, 30 years? Like, what does this look like?
Honestly, I could see anywhere from 15 to 30 years. I mean, I'm no lawyer, but it's like RICO. But again, we look at a guy like 6ix9ine. I'm pretty sure he was looking at similar time. I'm pretty sure he was going to do 25 years, but he snitched and then he got out in like 6 months from Rikers Island. So, I mean, I honestly, this is going to be interesting to see if anybody in this group is going to snitch on each other, because that is probably their only way out.
Well, like, I mean, if you're 4 guys, maybe not, but 28,
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, yeah, to rely on silence from all those guys. And I mean, it's crazy too, because like, in the case of 6ix9ine, I mean, these are all guys who were trying to kill him, and people still expected his silence. So, I mean, we don't know the details here, but yeah, I think it's going to be tough to keep almost 30 people quiet. Kendrick Lamar has marked his return to hip hop music with The Heart Part 5 and pretty much broken the internet with his brand new music video. Now, as you can see from the footage, this video is insanely dynamic, and yeah, face swaps, face changes. Now, anyone who hasn't seen the video, Kendrick swaps faces with 5 different celebrities, including Jussie Smollett, Will Smith, Kanye West, and others, including O.J. Simpson. Now, this video is insane. So for anyone who sort of missed the idea with this song, not only is he swapping faces throughout the song, but every time he swaps faces with a celebrity, he starts rapping from their perspective. So, I mean, a lot of different perspectives in here, Joe. We got Kendrick's, of course, but then we have heroes, villains, and even people who have passed on in the form of Nipsey Hussle. So, I mean, what do you make of this just based off a first reaction?
I'm freaked out. Like literally freaked out. Like when I saw him swipe over and I see OJ looking at me and I'm like, and it's so, I'm just, there it is, Will Smith. Like, holy cow.
Yeah. So I mean, like, weird. And it's so realistic too.
Yeah, it's so realistic, but you could sort of still tell that like, no, it's crazy. It's
the
crazy
only one I could really tell it was a fake face was Nipsey. But like this one, especially the Will Smith one, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, I found Kanye. I could tell a little bit with the expressions, but even at that, I mean, we're at like the earliest stages of this deep fake stuff, and it's only going to get scarier and better and scarier as it goes. This is really cool. I mean, like, and it's like number one on trending. It's like there's over like what? Over 100, almost 100,000. Well, by the time you guys will see this, it'll be over 100,000 comments.
1 million likes.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. I mean, like, what a concept, right? To try this, to do this.
Yeah, it's so odd. And I mean, he even went as far as, it's the Heart Part 5. On the cover, there's 5 hands, and each hand is actually the individual hand of the person that he swapped faces with. So, I mean, he went really deep with this. One thing I wonder, do you think he had to contact these people to get approval to use their likeness, or do you think that there's a loophole with that?
Good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I would assume you would need to, but maybe this is so early on technologic. There it is, another switch.
Kobe Bryant. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, the last 2 are from 2 people who have passed on. And I think the most notable switch is that he switched into Nipsey Hussle twice. And I think Nipsey, most of the last verse was from his perspective. So for anyone who doesn't know, Nipsey Hussle, of course, gunned down in front of his shop in Inglewood by a close associate in front of his 4-year-old daughter. So then there's Nipsey on the screen now. So I mean, I think the main bulk of this, also Kobe died in front of his daughter in the helicopter. So I think most of this track, in my perspective, is about the culture that we have sort of in modern day hip hop and pop culture, but also about some of the issues that are presenting in those cultures.
Yeah, no, totally, man. It's just, wow. It's scary, man. Like, honestly, like,
I'm tripped out.
Yeah. What are we in for, man? Like it's so hard to find actual facts and information and like trusting the sources. This is just muddying the waters even worse,
Well, yeah. And apparently they've used it. Apparently it's been used plenty of times in news already and such. And, it's not necessarily advertised. So, I mean, it is kind of scary to think, what are we in for in the future? But I mean, in terms of deep fake technology, this might be the best we've seen.
Yeah, 100% is the best I've seen. Well, I mean, I haven't seen too many of these. I've seen a few over the years, but this one, like in this context, like, wow. Like, it's not just doing one person. He's doing 5 and flowing, and then the expressions on the face are like the rap and stuff. Wow.
That is incredible. Crazy. Super heavy stuff. And, it makes me happy looking at all these artists out here who make great music. But, guys like, I'm not going to, disparage the dead, but guys who have passed on and advertised drugs. It's cool that kids like their music, but I'm just happy that there's some kids who look up to a guy like Kendrick Lamar, who's actually here talking about real life issues, doing something to make you think and not just trying to get you on drugs. I mean, I think this is what hip hop and I think pop culture in general really needs more of right now.
Yeah, like you're not chasing the almighty dollar, you're not chasing the Ferraris and the Porsches and the bling and all that stuff. So that's what I've loved. Like, that's why like I sort of like drifted away from hip hop or rap in those years, because it was just all, to me, what I saw was all, obviously the further you dig in, like anything else, I'll find good stuff and you'll find stuff that's like still legit. But I mean, on the surface, it was always like, the videos were all the same. A bunch of cars, lots of lights, women. Lots of girls, lots of money, piles of money, lots of stuff. So for me, that kind of sort of was like, it's all the same, right? But I mean, look, rock is the same thing. It's a bunch of guys in leather, always angry, never smiling in pictures.
Exactly.
So those are the tropes, but like, Tribe Called Quest. I always go back to those guys. Like a lot of the lyrics, the messaging was like so much more than just like, look at me, I'm the best, I'm the toughest, I'm the baddest, and all that stuff,
100%. And nowadays, guys like Kendrick, guys like J. Cole, and R.I.P. Nipsey, they're carrying that forward. So definitely excited to see this album from Kendrick, which should be due in a couple weeks. And we'll definitely keep you guys posted with our reaction to that as well. Now we're going to jump into this week's interview with Hill of iamhill. She's an incredible vocalist, a really cool artist, and just someone who I think is overall very unique from her aesthetic, just her overall vibe, her sound. Just a very, very unique person, and someone who I could really have picked her brain all day. I mean, just fascinating.
Yeah, I know. Like we had to sort of end it somewhere, but so super knowledgeable and everything she does. It's like nothing. I kind of sort of think like, she's like a true original in the sense of like just doing what she does in her way and her approach, and she's no nonsense, right? So she's also a coder. Yeah. She's also, does a lot of her own stuff, the videos and all that stuff. So definitely a smart girl, a great artist, and like we were so glad to have her on here. I mean, like just her NFTs, just the knowledge of the NFTs we spoke about was wow. Yeah. So it goes so much deeper and stuff. And like the fact that she actually can code and do that stuff, I'm so impressed. Like I always wanted to be a coder, like a hacker, like you see in the movies. Yeah. I would love to, like get my revenge on somebody when they did me wrong, like that kind of
exactly.
Stuff. I'm going dark there.
Insane. Yeah, she's incredible. And we had a great time chatting with her, and we'll catch up with you guys right afterwards.
I know. You can't get rid of me.
We're back with another great guest right here on Innersleeve. It's a pleasure to be joined by Hill of iamhill. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us on the show. It's a pleasure. I mean, so much cool stuff going on. Who are iamhill in terms of their musical identity for somebody who may not be familiar?
Sure. Musical identity of my project, I would say it started out, I would say some of my early inspirations were like James Blake, Banks, kind of dark electronic music, anything influenced by hip hop. I spent a few years listening to almost exclusively old school hip hop and soul music. So it kind of has branched out of a lot of different arenas, but now with this album, I would say it lands closest to something like Doja Cat, where it's really playful. It's really like, it's not trying to take itself too seriously, but the content is still really like social political commentary, but kind of tongue in cheek a lot of the time, which just, helps me sleep at night because I don't think we need more, political conversations happening. And then, obviously I put a lot of thought into my visual aesthetic as well. There's a lot of like, it's very minimal, like very futuristic. That's kind of the vibe that I tend to go for.
So would you say that was something that sort of was more of a recent vibe, or was that something that you sort of went for from the beginning?
Like musically early on, it was a lot more hectic as I kind of figured out my sound. So, early years, there was a lot more just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And this album is a lot more like, what can we take out? What can we take out? Like bare bones while still being as wild as possible, basically. And then vocally also I've come from, I come from a long history of being a professional vocalist and being hired as a vocalist and performing as a vocalist, and just that being my bread and butter for a lot of years. So creatively, I started to lean back from that more and more over the last like 5 years, I'd say, where now if you listen to this album, you wouldn't know that I can sing most of the time because I'm doing a lot of just talking and singing and just kind of making a mess vocally, which is new in terms of direction as well. So, you listen to James Blake and his vocals are really pristine and clean, and you listen to Doja Cat and it's just fucking dumb, right? Like she's dumb half the time. And I really like that. I really like having that humor. So I like naturally made that transition before I started listening to Doja Cat actually, but that's something that I really like, is when you don't have to use every tool in your toolkit all of the time, because it just gets exhausting.
Yeah. Do you find simplifying your songs, your arrangements, and sonic soundscapes, basically, do you find like it comes across better live?
Yeah, I mean, so live is a different story, right? Like I could just play with tracks, but I find it really boring. So most of my renditions of my albums live have always ended up including like really loud, really gritty electric guitar and real drums. Because
Nice.
I'm a musician, I play
Yeah.
like 4 instruments myself. And if I'm on a stage, like it's fine to have just a DJ or just tracks running, but it's a completely different experience when you've got real instruments on stage. And I love a good rock show. So that's a liberty I take when I'm performing live for sure.
Yeah, because drums definitely bring live drums will definitely bring that extra energy that for sure.
Yeah. It's hard to get that from tracks unless you can control the volume and just like absolutely blow people's faces off. So
yeah, exactly. I've been to one of those shows. I think it was Venetian Snares.
Yeah.
Where like there was 3-4 guys. I don't know if you remember back. Well, I don't know. It was back in the old day. There was a Maxell ad where it's like the sound blew your hair up.
Yeah.
But like I saw these 3 guys in the front. They weren't expecting when the sound came on. They just went like whoop, they turned around and went to the back of the club.
Yeah.
They weren't ready. I know that your music is very like you were saying. There's a lot of political and a lot of like stuff. Besides that, are there other main topics that you like to approach in your music?
Yeah, this has become like a common theme for me. I didn't realize how much I think about it, but it comes out in my writing a lot. The concept of like mass consumerism and the way that it fucks with our humanity and the way that, we define ourselves by what we own, what we buy, how much money we have. Because it's so pervasive, especially in pop culture, right? Like pop culture is all about who has money, who's got the coolest car, who's wearing the thickest chains. And it all just, I'm fucking broke and living in LA when I'm making this album. And just like, I have nothing, I have to grocery shop at Ralph's with like, I'm really uncomfortable there, but like, I don't have a choice. I can't go to Whole Foods. I can't afford it, So I'm in this place where like I'm living check to check and I'm writing music that is in this world where so much lyrical content is about how rich you are. And I'm just like, I can't write that and be authentic about it because I'm fucking broke. So it comes out in this like, I end up thinking about it really critically and, like how sad it is and how much it morphs our ability to just exist and be happy normally as humans, because I think it's completely removed that ability.
Yeah, and I think as like a young kid, like you're sort of really thrown into this crazy soup of like you have to have all this stuff. Whereas, it's really it's rough. It's a rough ride.
So that's a huge theme on the album is like that and also social media and the way that social media really tweaks the way that we view reality.
Yeah. Do you enjoy social part of actually posting your content and stuff?
Well, I like sharing my art, right? Like there's nothing more satisfying than like I made this thing and now I get to just put it up for anyone to see it. I'm feeling proud of that. But what I really can't fuck with and and this is also on the album and it's a constant pain point for me in my life is I really don't like being on social media. So I went through a few years where I was trying to force myself to spend more time on it and, speak to the, just like be on camera and put my face on camera and talk about my life or share, and as I've gone more into tech and spent less time focusing on, like trying to blow up as like a, on Instagram or something, the more I'm leaning away from that and the more I'm leaning towards just like artistic integrity, which was always the core value of mine. So I would say I do not like being on social media, but I do enjoy sharing art and viewing art. And that's kind of the root of what I've enjoyed about NFTs as well, is I love visual art. Like 3D art is mind blowing to me. Like I'm trying to learn how to do this myself because I'm obsessed with it. And if NFTs can stick to that, like being about the art, I am so here for that. It's going to be hard, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think it's moving so fast that even like at this point, you almost like you need more utility than the actual art at this point, right?
Yeah, tell me about it.
Have you ventured into it? Have you made any NFTs?
Yes, I have minted. Well, I was part of one a couple years ago, an artist called Nymphaea. So I co-produced that track, and then she minted it along with some visual art by Terra Moves. And then this year, or I guess it was this year, I minted my first NFT, which was an acoustic version of the first single from this album called Side D, which is like a disgusting song about the most stupid lyrical content I could come up with. And I made an acoustic rendition of it, which is like I find it hilarious. And so that's up on Catalog Works. So that was my first NFT. I've got my second one ready to go, but I'll probably wait to mint it until the album drops. So we'll probably do that in around July.
Did you find it hard to do? Was it an easier process? Because I mean, people are so confused by NFTs. I mean, for you personally, was it easy or difficult to even mint and get involved?
Well, I think there's different levels of complexity based on how involved you want to be. Because, and like how much you feel you need to understand before you jump in, right? Because if you don't care about understanding and you just want to fuck around and own some art that you can, frame in a digital frame on your wall, and you just want to be part of it, it doesn't matter. You don't have, all you have to know is how to use MetaMask. Really, that's
right.
That's it. Like if you want to get serious about it, you're going to want to have a hardware wallet. You're going to want to have multiple. You might want to have multiple accounts, some that are private, some that are public. You might want to have multiple different wallets. You might want to. There's a lot of ways you can go, but if like the basic entry level, I want to own an NFT, is not actually rocket science. All you really need to know is how to use MetaMask and how to move crypto into that wallet. That's really the only step you need. But if you want to mint, there are extra steps to it, and there are I think it's going to get more user friendly as you go, but because of the nature of putting something on the chain, there's a lot of like prerequisites that you kind of have to be careful of, right? If you fuck it up the first time, it's just like really annoying to start from scratch again because you need a different fingerprint, right? So
it's there.
Yeah. So I didn't find it that difficult, but also as a person who has always been, I would say, technologically inclined in certain ways, especially software ways, maybe not hardware ways. I didn't find it that daunting. I have a few different wallets. I had messed around with Tezos on Hikat Nunk as well. So it wasn't that daunting to me. And also Patrick at my label, which is Text Me Records, he had spent a lot of time minting with different artists and kind of guiding other people through it. So I had a lot of people who were very willing to help onboard me as well. So I had lots of resources. I feel like you can find a ton of resources too. Like everybody is willing to help.
Yeah, and it sounds like because you said you did one a few years ago, so you were pretty much like ahead of the curve. Like, because I've only known about it for about a year now.
Yeah,
and so you were like early on. Have you noticed?
We minted that about a year ago.
Do your fans are they into that kind of stuff? Have you figured that part of it out yet? Like,
it's different. It's different. I think honestly, the Instagram crowd and the Twitter crowd are two very different demographics. And I have not spent a lot of time on Twitter, although I've always had a Twitter account. I just leaned towards Instagram because I like visuals, right? So it was more natural to me. And so moving onto Twitter has felt kind of good because all of a sudden I don't feel like I have to be posting my big dumb face all over the place. But it's also like all of a sudden I'm in a different world and I'm speaking with different people, and I would say that there's not a lot of crossover there. So it's kind of like starting from scratch, but it's kind of refreshing. So I don't know.
And it's happening there. That's pretty much where you got to be for.
Yeah. TikTok, man, if I tried to exist and be influential on every social media platform there is, I would not do anything else with my time. And I have a full-time job. So just like TikTok is fun. And there are some hilarious accounts on TikTok. Like it's so entertaining sometimes. I will sometimes just I will scroll on TikTok because it's easy to go down a rabbit hole. But to be on TikTok just feels like, just another thing that I have to find stuff to post. That's not me. I just want to make art and then put the art out and then make more art.
Yeah. And repeat.
Rinse, repeat.
Sure.
If I ain't got the feels, how could I hide them? I look underneath and I still can't find them. I said I was in love because I wanted to try it, but I still feel alone. I guess I survived it.
One thing about your lyrical content, I'm trying to get a question in while everybody can hear me here. Is to get these themes out? I mean, you talk about toxic relationships, liberation, and some aggressive themes and lyrics over some really nice sort of electro-pop style. How's the balance for that? And also, is it hard to get that out lyrically?
I like that question. I think that 5 years ago, it would have been hard to get that out lyrically. But as I've aged, as I've aged as an artist, I just kind of, it's hard for me to write content that feels trite or light or like, I'm like, for some reason, inclined towards tackling messy subjects. And I'm really into like grammar and words, and I read a ton, and I wouldn't say it's been difficult. Like, a lot of the songs on this album are tackling really dense subject matter, but I didn't think about it really. It just came out. It just happened. So I wouldn't say that it's been challenging to address those things. It's been pretty natural, I would say.
It was more challenging almost to do the lighthearted stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah, writing happy songs is not my forte, let's put it that way.
What was the experience like? Sort of, you sort of set the scene, but maybe tell us the whole creative process with Mike.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So yeah, we did make this album in LA. I was living in a loft in downtown Los Angeles on Spring Street with two other creatives. And it was just kind of a revolving door of artists in that loft. And we were there. We made that album in 2019. So it's been a while. And, we made an album during the pandemic as well, Mike and I, and it ended up being very different because I had been in LA during the BLM riots, and I was arrested during that time for participating in those riots when they got really bad in downtown LA, even though it seemed like they were just arresting people to make a point. It was, I don't know. So the content is pre-pandemic, but what's interesting is all the feelings and thoughts that I put into the Sellout album have absolutely persisted. Like, I don't feel like it's a timestamp when it comes to content. I feel like it's remained very accurate for me.
I mean, in terms of the Alberta music scene too, because I know you're originally based out of Edmonton. What are your thoughts just on the scene in general? And
oh man, I was just talking with a friend of mine about this the other day because I feel very out of touch. I wasn't in Edmonton for years, and I want to know if there is a scene for me here, because I was always kind of, very surface level with the scene here, because I never found other artists that were doing things that made me really excited, you know? And I don't think that's because it's not here. I just haven't found it. And if any of your listeners can tell me like what venues to hit up, or like what kinds of communities might exist in this city, because I'm in Edmonton now, I would love to hear about it, because I'm actively seeking that out. I love working with Mike, and we still work together, and that will never change. And he's here too now. But in terms of other artists, I just feel like it's hard to find that community. I don't know where that is. There's a lot of country music here. There's a lot of rock music here, but also a lot of venues have died. So I don't really know what to look for, to be honest with you. But I would be open to it. I'm planning on spending time in San Francisco this year and going back to LA for a little while in September. And because I know where those communities are in those cities, they're easy to find. There are a lot of them. It's built into the city. So I don't know if I'm just unaware of it here or not, but I would love to find it.
In terms of the Web3 space, I'm just curious. There's a lot of virtual reality stuff happening, artists being involved in different things in the space. Just wondering if you've explored that.
I haven't done a lot of exploring when it comes to like the literal metaverse, where you can, exist digitally in digital space. But I will say that I have become, and I mentioned this earlier, I've become really obsessed with 3D animation that is interactive, which is essentially what you're talking about. And I've been learning how to work with WebGL using like a JavaScript top layer, and just been going through the foundational like basics of building universes like that. Because for my next album, I would love to have it be a fully immersive album where you're not just listening to the music, but you can interact with an environment at the same time that is like a visual representation of the music. And with every song, your environment has like a new element to it. That's something I've been like brainstorming on, but I've seen a lot of web design, creative web design that blows my fucking mind. And that is the closest I've come to feeling like I'm in a metaverse, you know? So I haven't spent a lot of time on that within the Web3 community, but I know that those two things converge in a lot of ways. So.
Very cool. I like that. Go ahead, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to say, what excites you about it most? Like, is there something like you want to do yourself that you can't do in, let's say, real life that you would do in the metaverse?
I think what excites me about it is that it can be anything. It can be anything. You can fly, you can drive, you can exist underwater forever. It can be anything. And you can't, I've spent a lot of time in my life making music videos because I love doing it. I love the challenge of like, how are we going to pull off this concept that I have? Like I want to float out of a chair. I want to be underwater. I want to be on a boat. I want, like all these whatever ideas. And if I can learn how to build that on the web and have it be just as powerful and have whoever that avatar look like me or look like someone else or look like a completely different species, it's like all of a sudden especially being able to do that myself as a programmer, that just feels like it gives me an immense amount of power without needing to rely on external sources, which can be challenging. Resources can be challenging.
Do you enjoy coding and stuff or learning code?
Yeah, it's what I do as my day job. Is I am a computer programmer.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I remember diving in, but it's like I figured I just got to pick a lane. There's just too many hobbies or interests. I just got to pick a lane. And it's key for this whole what's going on. But what I've noticed about after a good 8-9 months of like studying the whole NFT, crypto, and all that stuff, what I find is everybody likes to pitch the whole decentralization, and it's attractive, right? That whole idea of it, but I think it's still like very young. I think it's going to take a long time to mature. We need a lot more adoption, and it has to be a lot simpler, to get in the game. I think, for the majority of the people, like, even myself, like, okay, I have a MetaMask and stuff, but okay, you got to check out a tutorial, and, not a lot of people aren't into that, digging deeper than they have to. So
I agree.
Do you think it's just more of the same at this point now in this whole like metaverse or NFT land? Is it just more of the same, or is it more?
I think if we're not careful, it could be. Obviously, it's really hard to decentralize when you're also trying to build platforms that have high usage, because decentralizing means it's difficult to, as a DAO or as a collective or something, it can be very hard to make decisions. It can be very hard to come to conclusions and like make plans and actually execute, like too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. But I think that as a technology, it has a lot of potential. I know for sure that it hasn't fully realized that potential. It's very young. It's very early. Like there is no rush to jump onto this bandwagon. Like this is going to be a long, slow burn, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes as it goes. Like this might all come to zero at the end of the day. Who knows? All these NFTs might come to zero at the end of the day. Who knows? But I do think that blockchain technology in and of itself has a lot of potential. And so I think it's just about making sure we keep ourselves in check, making sure we keep having these conversations. I think the right people are already involved in a lot of the right ways to prevent the recreation of Web 2. I don't think anybody wants to go down that road again. I think we all get it. And I think there was this what were they, like the Moonbirds, there was some big NFT release like this past week, I think. And it was very, some of these releases are super high traffic, right? And they drive, some of them will drive gas prices up. Some of them will, they commandeer a lot of space. They have a lot of power, and they make you feel kind of small, and they make you feel like, oh, well, that's like monopolizing. But that doesn't mean that the whole thing is broken. Like, I think if you're looking at it the wrong way, you can focus on only the downfalls and the current problems with the system, but I think that at least there's potential for it to be better. So also, like, I like can't believe how annoying, like if I'm watching a coding tutorial, I get so many ads. I would love to not have that happening. Like every 30 seconds, I'm like closing an ad so I can keep watching the tutorial. So that would be nice to.
Here at WatchMojo, we're for our top 10 lists. So we actually decided to pull a couple of lists for you to react to. And Joe, I'll let you take it away here. We do have choices.
Well, we have two choices here. We have top 10 reasons NFTs are hated, or we have top 10 NFT stories of 2021. Which one would you like to?
Let's do reasons why they're hated, just because I want to hear them.
I knew it. I said I have a feeling you were going to go for this one.
You guessed.
I figured. Well, okay, example, like a 10th place is cheating the artist, due to NFTs existing in a Mad Max-esque universe more than later. Anyway, so then there's number 9 would be like the cost of minting NFTs is why people hate it, right? Where the gas fees were at an all-time high. It was crazy. According to you, what are the top 10 things you think is most hated about NFTs? Oh, sorry, 3 things, yes.
I was like, that's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say number 1 is the environmental cost.
Okay.
I read a little bit too much about climate change and its potential impacts on the next 50 years of the planet. So I would say that would be number 1. Number 2, I would say like cost of entry, not barrier of entry, but cost of entry. It's like you think artists are going to be able to onboard themselves, but what if these artists don't have money? How are they going to even afford to mint something? Exactly. You want someone to put that much money up front when they're the ones who are supposed to be gaining. And what if they don't even sell? That would probably be number 2. Number 3, reason why NFTs are hated. I mean, this is maybe a generalization, but there's a lot of talk about them just being a big scam. I don't know if I'm allowed to list it as a reason, but a lot of people will just say like, oh, artists are just getting scammed. This is not going to go anywhere. And it's not, the technology is not as secure and it's just a scam. So I would say that maybe that's number 2.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I think here digital theft was number 7 kind of thing. Like there's no mention of no scam or anything, but you're pretty spot on. Number 3 ended up environmental problems. Number 2 was this, you said earlier before I asked the question, was the bubble may soon burst. We don't know what's going to happen, right? And then number 1 here is they promote inequality. So most people involved with NFTs like to think of themselves as taking back control from the elite on their decentralized platform. In reality, the token realm does the opposite. The blockchain analysis firm Chainalysis examined NFTs from February to November 2021. They found that 360 NFTs owners were holding 2.7 million minted images between them. So of those, 9% controlled around 80% of the value, which makes sense, right? With the Bored Apes, and they control the majority of all that stuff. Right?
Yeah, that's.
But it's like that's why my point of before, it just seems like more of the same at this point, because like if Snoop Dogg drops an NFT, of course it's gonna sell like crazy. But if like little old me puts it into, it's like a drop in the ocean, So
yeah, I feel that. I'm just I guess I'm trying to remain hopeful because the gatekeepers of Web 2 are massive corporations, massive. And even just the idea that in Web 3, we can own our data and control our data, like that's powerful enough for me to want to sign up. But when it comes to NFTs and like my being bullish on NFTs, I just think allowing an artist to set their own price is just kind of refreshing. So it's true. I totally think that number 1 thing is absolutely fucking true. And we're in a transition period too, right? Like even if it does end up going to 0, we're still in a transition period. And yes, most of the owners are tech bros. That's just how it's going to be. They were in it. They were in the world first. They saw it first. They jumped in first. That's who wins. It's like,
fair enough.
That's a real thing, but I don't know. I think it could change. And I'm just trying to stay hopeful that it could change because, there's obviously a lot that can go wrong with the whole thing. Right. So
well, I like the idea of, I like the idea of it, like, as an artist, and you can invest in the artist, and then, if that artist does blow up, well, you made an investment and you get something for it,
Yeah.
So
I kind of look at it like just super like high tech Patreon, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same.
Yeah. But also maybe with like a bit of the gas prices, will maybe not make, because if anybody at this point could put anything on Spotify, right? It doesn't cost you barely anything, right? So at least if there is a little bit of a barrier, not a barrier, but you'll think twice before, should I mint this or not? Can I afford to mint this kind of thing? So maybe there's
part of me likes that and part of me doesn't, because I don't think that money should be a barrier of entry into the arts. But I do think that there's, music platforms for NFTs, Catalog and Sound XYZ, and there's a few of them. Those are the two I would say most talked about, I think. And Sound XYZ takes shit for being, I don't know how to call it, elitist. They only allow certain artists on their platform, and that's annoying. But also, like, shouldn't there be an artistic barrier of entry? Like, I don't know. Because, and I want to clarify, like, I'm not talking about like you need to have achieved X, Y, and Z. I'm just talking about purely the thing that you made is either dope or it's something that you didn't even think about and you just threw it together and you're like, I'll admit it and make some money. Like, did you care about it? Did you make something that's authentic? Did you make something that is actually like interesting? Like, I don't care about anything else, but that should be a point that we actually care about. I would like that to be a point that we actually care about.
Yeah. Agreed. Are you touring for the album?
I don't think I will. Okay. I think, I've considered doing Canadian, I have an O1 visa. I could do an American, but I'm not sure that it's worth the effort currently, but I'll consider it. Cause I'd have to put a band together and everything, cause I don't want to play the tracks apparently, right?
Exactly.
So
I know people don't realize that, there's one thing between the art and then putting it and like, you're and like achieving the vision you have for it live is a whole different game.
Different ball.
Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you so much, and you take care.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hatred is the wheel. For the price of one, you could get 2 feels. And self-pity is so sweet. Now you want more ease. Now you want more ease.
We want to give a huge shout out to iamhill for joining us on today's episode of Innersleeve. Again, Hill is a really interesting person, I think, just overall. And, picking up on what you were saying, Joe, about her knowledge of NFTs and sort of the whole Web3 space, I really like the fact that, and I think this can transfer to her knowledge of music too. She's very no nonsense and very she has no illusions, I think is a good way to put it, about really any field. She seems to be able to analyze a field exactly where it is and where it's at, regardless of where she wants it to be at. You know what I mean? She's very honest about it.
Yeah. And that's helpful. Like when you're an artist and you're like, don't kid yourself or be precious about stuff that is probably at the end of the day really not important, right? It's like she knows what she wants. She sees the target, boom, and she goes for it.
Or the things that aren't important. I think like if you're not, doing well enough, whatever you do, whether you're a writer, whether you're, just working a regular 9 to 5, if you're honest about where you're at and your performance and how you're doing, it can help you a lot, rather than have someone else come and tell you you're not doing good enough. It's like, if you can identify the problems, I think you're saving yourself from more problems. So, that's one of the things I got from her. And like you said, just a coder. So you can see that analytical mindset, which I think is more so rare in the music. I think music is a lot of idea people, a lot of dream people, and not necessarily as many analytical people.
Yeah, a lot of creatives and stuff. And I find like in terms of artists, there are obviously like her, and I'm sure there's a ton that are more like even Madison Lash she's very business oriented. She thought of, she knows like if I want to make this, I got to do these things. I think it's a well-rounded artist that has both of those, can remain creative and inspired, but at the same time also realize that like, okay, well, what's going to move the needle, right? What's going to do this?
100%.
What's going to get me here? You know, that's always, you can always learn from that, man.
We want to thank Hill again for joining us, and we want to thank you guys for tuning in to episode 73 of Innersleeve. Make sure to check in with us on YouTube and all of our social media at SoundMojo. We have tons of content coming out on this day in music every day, independent artists, the podcast, and also polls and community tabs. So make sure to subscribe and let us know exactly what you want to see and hear on the show. We always are listening. Also, if you enjoy the podcast or any of our content, please make sure to check out our online store for t-shirts, hoodies, phone cases, pillowcases. The sky is the limit, and make sure to get in style with a little bit of SoundMojo merchandise. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Innersleeve. We'll catch you guys next week.